Video games, the newest and now the biggest of the entertainment industries. It has many of us hooked through its many forms, from major console titles to the casual "you've got 2 minutes to spare, why not play a little, oh now half an hour has passed because you got too into it" kind of game. And as a criminal always returns to the scene of a crime, we always seem to come back to games. But what are the games companies doing to achieve this? What primal urges are they exploiting to get us to focus more on the game and less about our hungry, crying children in the next room? A good place to start looking is World of Warcraft, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game and time sink, where you are a mighty warrior running around a huge open world doing quests and slaying monsters for loot along with thousands of other warriors just like you. And yet the world seems utterly unchanged, and all your hard work seems totally meaningless. A bit like life, really. So how do they make people continuously pay £10 a month for the honour to keep embarking on near-identical fetch and kill quests day in, day out? The simple answer is by rewarding them, not with anything useful or tangible, mind you, but with in-game stuff. Killing monsters yields random rewards, so the next monster that you kill could drop this special component that you need 20 of, along with 4 loads of other materials to build one piece of a 5-piece suit of armor that gives you a special stat boost if you wear the whole suit at once. This gives you the short-term goal, the just one more mentality, because it could be the next one, and once you have it, you will have completed one of the medium-term goals of having one set of materials that brings you closer to one of your longer-term goals, of having that piece of armor that brings you closer to the big goal of having the full armor set, which adds to your ultimate goal of pretending like you've done something with your worthless, meaningless life. Even if it is something that you can only access if you keep paying for it. This is ultimately the same process that makes people gamble, but even more refined and with a greater range of goals. Not to mention the added benefit that the rewards that are given are ultimately worthless, so people can win as many times as they like, and the house never has to pay out. Casinos around the world should take note. Of course, the problem with this is that people who really like gambling will go off and do it for real, because the possibility of losing everything doesn't give quite the same thrill if you don't then need to sell your grandmother to pay off the resulting debt. Another human flaw to exploit, or consumer characteristic to appeal to if you're of a corporate disposition, is the OCD need to continue something until completion. It's amazing the trivial things that people will do in games just to reach 100%, even if it doesn't yield any actual rewards, except perhaps bragging rights among the sort of people you probably don't really want to be associated with anyway. The LEGO games are masters of this. Collect all the studs, and maybe if you've collected all of the studs, we'll give you some new abilities so that you can collect more studs, or red bricks, or gold bricks, or reasons to live. Ultimately, though, the fact remains that people will do nearly anything if only to say that they did. So if you give them a ton of meaningless and lengthy challenges, they will work away at them feverishly, until they can finally stand up and say, "I have reached 100% completion, a major achievement in my bleak existence, and now I can move on with my life and, oh look, a sequel." But maybe if giving people more isn't your thing, then how about threatening to take it away instead? Games often make you work hard to gain stuff, but once you've got it, it's just kind of there. So if you want to use it as a way to make people come back, why not threaten to take it away if the player goes away for too long? After all, whilst people do technically know the difference between the real world and a video game, they do still feel a sense of ownership of anything that they have had to work hard to get, and they will feel a sense of loss if it is taken away again. Thus they have a lasting incentive not to stop playing. Of course, this technique does have a faint whiff of blackmail about it, but if threatening to take something away when it's not being used seems to work well enough when talking about democracy, why should it not work for you? But maybe I'm being cynical. Not all of the methods of making people keep playing games are necessarily about using psychological trickery to make people feel that they need to keep playing. The far more friendly option is to make people want to keep playing because they're having fun. The natural place to start in making people want to continue playing is to make the basic mechanics as fundamentally enjoyable as possible. If your game feels like you're trying to get a brick through a maze by pulling it with chopsticks, people probably won't get all that into it in the first place, much less come back to it. This may sound obvious, but you'd be amazed how many games don't think of this. Kid Icarus Uprising springs to mind. Another big technique for getting people to replay your game is to add competitive elements, because as we all know, people love the opportunity to compete and test their skills against one another in a friendly environment where they can hone and perfect their skills and admire the abilities of others, and I'm not fooling you at all, am I? Okay, people love to beat each other at stuff and then rub it in their faces, or accuse them of cheating if they lose. But ultimately people like doing that, and will keep on doing it, adding lots of replay value. Games like Call of Duty may like to pretend that their single player matters, but ultimately the multiplayer is what everyone goes back for. On the other hand, perhaps the simplest technique to add replayability is to continue adding new content after release. More content means more to play, means people have a good reason to come back. It makes sense. There are 3 ways of going about this. There is the kind and generous adding new content as updates or as free downloadable packs. The slightly less friendly, but still fair enough really, releasing large packs of new content for a fair price. Or there is the greedy, soulless approach of releasing tiny amounts of new content at a quarter of the price of the full game, and which feel like they should have been in the game anyway to start with, but it was cut out so that they could charge you extra approach. Oh yeah, Call of Duty, I win there. Of course, you could just bypass the effort of producing the new content yourself, and let your players do it for you. Player content creation tools mean a potentially infinite amount of fantastic content may exist behind all those clones of other games' levels, and the levels filled with petty profanity, and the insanely difficult to complete levels made specifically so that their makers can feel smug. Alternatively, if you don't want to keep bringing out new stuff for players to do, you could always give them freedom to do whatever they want with what you give them in the first place. After all, people are nothing if not masterful procrastinators, so why not just give them some tools and an environment to use them in, and let them go mad? GTA have gotten good at this with all of their open worlds and vehicles to explore them with, and weapons to blow stuff up. Messing about and having it still come out as epic and fun is far more satisfying than a scripted action sequence that you have little to no control over, and because it can be different every time, there's a real reason to keep coming back. Okay, time for a case study. Gaming company makes something up, that is MSU Studios, yeah. They are making a quirky, cartoony, top-down, arena-based brawler game for PC. This game combines different arenas with different sets of enemy waves to create each level, and allows the player to customize their character's appearance. The customization is good as it allows for a more personalized experience and also gives lots of scope for unlockables. If you can unlock new hats and swords, then that provides plenty of goals to achieve to keep people playing. The way that levels are structured is also useful, as it means that any new enemies or arenas can be put together in different ways to make loads of new playable content without too much trouble. But what else can they do to add replay value to this game? Customizable characters is good, but customizable game mechanics would really allow for an experience that can vary hugely, which would help prevent it from getting too repetitive. An inbuilt level editor with level sharing capabilities is something worth considering, and which could add a lot to the game even after the developers stop adding to it. Multiplayer is an element which definitely lends itself to a game like this, be it local or network-based. And if the gameplay is sufficiently fun, this could combine with that to really make people continue having fun with this even after exhausting its content. Pulled off correctly, these methods should add sufficient replayability to this game, but may not be applicable to all games, so it is important to consider what type of game you are making before working out what features can be used to draw players back time and time again. In the end though, you only really need to know how to make money from a game, and making people want to play it again doesn't really matter unless you can charge them for it. So everything I've said can safely be ignored, and you can just do the same as all the big developers seem to do these days. Hire a large marketing department, only show people fantastic pre-rendered action sequences that don't let people see what the game is like until they buy it, and only put in the minimum amount of content so that you can make another one as soon as possible and repeat the whole process over and over. This works for the big names, and it will probably work fine for you, unless, of course, you have a soul. In which case, well done you.